So with that, let's get into the crux of the program here. Somebody in the NFL is getting fired, and I have a few candidates that we should be watching out for. I'll count you down from number 5 all the way down to number 1, so it gets more likely as I go down the list here. This one may not be a popular one for many, but I feel we should throw him on the list. Dirk Koetter, head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2-6 on the campaign this year, 4th in the NFC South. This is an interesting situation because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a sexy pick in the preseason by the prognosticators, if you will, and the pundits to perhaps make a wild card game, maybe make a bit of a deep run in the NFC playoffs. Clearly not the case right now as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are struggling mightily. Yes, they're dealing with injuries. Jameis Winston dealing with that AC joint issue, obviously more of a prolonged injury than we once thought. So Jameis Winston actually has been shut down for the next couple of weeks. It looks like it's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick there at the quarterback position in the coming weeks. Mike Evans suspended this week because of what happened a week ago. So I throw Dirk Koetter down here because it was a good season in 2016. A building block type of season when they went 9-7 and you thought, okay, this was going to be the year. With the Tampa Bay Buccaneers having the weapons that they have now, O.J. Howard, a fantastic tight end in his own right, as well as Cameron Brate, Doug Martin coming back from a suspension earlier this season. You have the likes of Mike Evans, Humphreys, a great slot receiver, and an offensive line that, yes, disappointed a little bit a year ago, but still has some pieces to build around. And then a young defense. Hargraves back there in the secondary of the veteran and Brent Grimes. None of that has really transpired. And again, I can put an asterisk next to Dirk Koetter here because of the Jameis Winston injury, if you will. But sometimes NFL owners and GMs, they're not so forgiving. So I put Dirk Koetter here just as a name to monitor. I don't think he's necessarily going to get fired tomorrow or even in the next few weeks, maybe even after the season. But maybe once we get into 2018, Dirk Koetter will have a bit of a fire under his butt where, okay, you need to start performing. That's probably what the NFL owner is going to say out of Tampa Bay and the management there, because you go from 9-7 to perhaps what could be somewhat of a 5-11 type season in an NFC South where you thought maybe anybody could really win that division going into this season. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were in the conversation, Panthers were as well, Saints, etc. And so there's a lot of pressure on Dirk Koetter. That's why he's on my list here in the somebody's getting fired section. Obviously not as pressing as some of the names that I'm going to get into here, but I will say this final point about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Secondary has had major issues. Brent Grimes and Vernon Hargraves have played very poorly according to Pro Football Focus. The highest PFF rank is Hargraves in the secondary at 54, and that's a poor grade. So obviously not panning out in the back end right now. You still have Levante David and Gerald McCoy who are having fantastic seasons, but outside of them in that defense, big-time concerns. So Dirk Koetter falls at number 5. How about the next coach here? Ben McAdoo is on the hot seat. 1-7 on the campaign so far, 4th dead last in the NFC East. And now there are reports of players essentially giving up on McAdoo at this point. And these are anonymous reports given to ESPN here, and I'm going to read a quote because I think it's pretty amazing in terms of what this anonymous player said. But before I get to that, some weird situations with McAdoo. So, suspended Janoris Jenkins for a game for team reasons, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie as well. You look at some of the playmakers in the secondary, not as good as they were last year. Landon Collins has dropped off a bit. He's still graded pretty well according to Pro Football Focus, but not as good as last year. Of course, you have to point to the injuries as well, Odell Beckham Jr., Brandon Marshall, etc. But I feel that Ben McAdoo clearly is losing this locker room because you look at this quote here, and I'm going to read it. It was given to Josina Anderson of ESPN. So this is what one anonymous player said about Ben McAdoo. Quote, "I'm going to keep it 100, and I'm going to tell you like it is. And it's terrible. I feel like we really don't have a leader in Coach McAdoo. Going from Coach Coughlin, a leader who just had that presence, like if you were doing something wrong on the phone in the hallway, walking by Coughlin, he's going to say something to you. Coach McAdoo, on the other hand, would see you on the phone in the hallway, walk by you, and then fine you." So we're seeing two personality differences here, or one big difference in that Ben McAdoo is passive-aggressive. Tom Coughlin is in your face, is going to tell you like it is. And clearly some of the players in the New York Giants locker room don't like this passive-aggressive type of methodology, if you will. And, of course, you can look back to last week. The Giants suffered the franchise's worst home loss since 1998 when they absolutely got blown out by the Los Angeles Rams. So, like I said at the beginning of the program, folks, we want you commenting and reacting and throwing in your thoughts. Who will be the first NFL coach to be fired this year? So we do have a weigh-in. We'll bring it up to you for the folks at home. Toss in your thoughts. Maybe it's McAdoo, perhaps a Dirk Koetter. Will an NFL coach get fired during the regular season? Will they all just get fired after the season? Throw in those thoughts. We'll be showing them throughout the broadcast as we see fit. But let's check in with number 3, and somebody is getting fired, and that is Chuck Pagano. And I am not going to put a lot of the blame on this guy. This has been a collective failure on the part of the Indianapolis Colts, talking about the management and how they have dealt with Andrew Luck. I talked about this in my opening rant back on Wednesday. You can check that out on the podcast. But essentially, the management has failed Andrew Luck. They've wasted away his talent because of the injuries that he's dealing with. Of course, he was placed on IR. We're not going to see him in 2017, which I think is a shame. And I am projecting that Chuck Pagano is eventually going to be the scapegoat here and get fired because of it. So the Colts 3-6, fourth in the AFC South right now. And a new GM, so usually that points to change likely to happen if you're not having success with your current head coach. And you throw on the whipped cream on top, if you will, the Vontae Davis debacle that has gone on. So he's no longer with the team. He's been removed. He's been released. And so this is what happened. Before the Houston Texans game, Chuck Pagano left Vontae Davis behind and called it a coach's decision. But Davis said he was dealing with a groin injury and thought maybe he could give it a go, or at least he felt a right to travel with the team and felt, quote, disrespected by the Colts. Obviously, this is going to create tension in the locker room in my eyes because Vontae Davis is such a well-respected player. So obviously, we have a couple PR nightmares, if you will, with the Indianapolis Colts and Chuck Pagano, etc. So he is candidate number 3. How about candidate number 2? Somebody is getting fired. This guy's been a fixture in the hot board, if you will. Marvin Lewis, head coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. Marvin Lewis, 3-5, third in the AFC North. The Bengals are dead last in yards per game, 28th in points per game. And this is a situation where I think it's just getting stale right now with the Cincinnati Bengals and Marvin Lewis. Tom Downey here, he's Ohio-born, and he's talked about this. He has many friends who are Bengals fans. And Tom Downey, of course, our Cowboys insider here at Chat Sports. And all of his friends who are Bengals fans say, Marvin Lewis has to go. It's time. 7 playoff appearances, 0 wins. What does that tell you? And I think this could be the final straw for the Cincinnati Bengals. They had a pretty bad draft just recently. Everybody knew their offensive line was going to be pretty darn bad. And especially at tackle, it's in shambles. So I think Marvin Lewis's time has come and gone at this point. Yes, the Bengals are 3-5. Yes, maybe they can get on a run and maybe make a push in a wild card in a bit of a watered-down bottom of the AFC. But still, when you're dead last in yards per game and you're not scoring many points when you have speedsters and John Ross, I get it, he's been hurt, but you have A.J. Green, Joe Mixon, who I feel is not being used the right way. You have a spark plug in Gio Bernard. I think he hasn't been used the right way in years past. Tyler Kroft as well, a good talent. Of course, you lose Tyler Eifert for the season. That's tough. But you still have playmakers on that offense. To be dead last in yards per game with a qualified quarterback. I won't say he's a great quarterback, but a qualified quarterback in Andy Dalton. Obviously, a big-time disappointment for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. They were the fixture of the AFC playoffs for some time, and clearly that is not the case right now. So Marvin Lewis, there at number 2 in terms of somebody is getting fired in the NFL. How about number 1? Hue Jackson, head coach for the Cleveland Browns. This has been a major disappointment for me personally. Why is that? Because I thought that Hue Jackson could bring this no-nonsense mentality to Cleveland, change the culture a little bit, and create a winning atmosphere again. in Ohio, and clearly that has not gone on when you look at the record there. 0-8, dead last in the AFC North, 31st in points per game this season, and I have not seen a lot of development out of DeShone Kizer right now. Why is that? Maybe it's not his fault. Maybe it's the fact that he's in, and then he's out, and then he's in, and then he's out, and then Kevin Hogan's in, and Cody Kessler, throw him into the fold a little bit. I think it's been a little bit of a disaster, to put it nicely, with Hue Jackson and the way in which he has dealt with these quarterbacks here in Cleveland. I don't think there's an answer at quarterback on the Cleveland's roster right now. They're going to have a high draft pick coming up in 2018. Maybe a couple of high draft picks because they have Houston's first rounder as well. And Houston could be continuing to struggle in the AFC. So Hue Jackson, I feel, is in the roughest position right now, probably the most likely position to get fired in the NFL. One final point. So there actually is a report from ESPN today that the Giants do not plan to make any personnel changes. So it looks like Ben McAdoo may be okay, but take that with a grain of salt. Nothing official per se from the Giants organization. So do with that with what you wish.